So it's a completely different day than when I last was working on this piece. I got it was exhausting. It was a really difficult piece for me to complete. And so I needed some time just to create and draw. The movie's been released. I've seen it. I love it. But I definitely wanted to keep you all in the loop and show you where this piece ended up, especially on the back end through Blender. So, jumping into this piece, you all will be pretty familiar with what you see so far. It looks pretty similar to where I left off. We have those walls and textures and things that we previously talked about. What I have changed is everything in regards to now everything has textures. You see here it's kind of pretty dark because I wanted it to show the light that I was going to end up reflecting into the room. And I also wanted a lot of gem tones as opposed to just flat surfaces. So you'll see, like right here, for example, right here in this corner, it is very reflective, it is reflective of light. I wanted so much light to shine into this set as I feel like the official images for the movie are very desaturated and not something that people really feel light is coming through. Jumping to the doors, I modeled those when we were on camera last time, but I did add a texture to them that is straight from set photos that I was able to find. Right here, you can see I then duplicated them to have them be mirrored on either side. For these doors, I actually added a bump to the normal so that it kind of protrudes just a little bit, slightly, and you'll see here, you can see down here at the bottom that bump node that I was talking about previously, so it can give a bit of a protruding edge there. I think the biggest thing that I did since the last time we spoke was I made the doorway on the opposite side of the room. So what I originally wanted this piece to be was I was going to have multiple camera angles and I wanted it to be really in depth and we would have a back view and a side view and all these different things. And my mistake was I have like 8 days that I give myself to make one of these 3 word review art pieces and it got down to, let's call it day 7, and I still was modeling. So when it came down to it, it really was just what's important, what's the priority. And the priority here was getting these characters into frame, getting them to interact with the scene rather than building out this elaborate set that was going to be breathtaking. And this is a social media post, so I didn't want it to be too much. So where I went with this was I wasn't going to, I did model more of that back entrance that we talked about in the last time. So we have the stairs that we talked about along with all this area. But what I did have is I made this archway, and this archway is in the movie. There's a door in this circle area on the actual movie set, and I believe there is like a gem or something up here at the top. But to the point that I previously mentioned, that was not necessary as I was not going to have multiple camera angles trying to mimic the set one to one. So if you look here, you can see the green emerald texture that we've talked about before, along with it has a new border of some gold actually. And these rings are very similar, if not identical, to those windows that I made previously, but now they are just sloped a little bit down here in the back so that they can get more of a tunnel perspective as opposed to just a window perspective. So that, along with the stairs, is reflected there. So if I go into my camera view for camera 1, this is what it looks like from the front door to the doorway that I was talking about previously. And if I flip it back to from the opposite perspective we just were looking at, from the back door to the front door, this is what it's looking like. And I feel like this looks almost identical to the set photos that I was mirroring my look after with this creation. So I'm extremely happy. I think this piece is far and beyond what I thought it was going to end up being after the last time we spoke, because I was kind of just confused how I was going to be moving forward with that piece. This is the perspective from the steps. And then I have some additional views here, but let's start with back to this view. What I did is I worked in Procreate to make some flying monkeys for this scene, I wanted to add some additional characters. So let's look at those characters right here. So these monkeys are in this scene, and what I really wanted them to do was provide a little bit more of the depth that we were looking for in this scene. So I wanted them to help have a vantage point to where these characters are going rather than just the characters floating in space. And also within the actual movie scene, these characters are seen on opposite side to give a little bit more weight into the scene. So what I did is I have that character with some array modifiers and mirrors, very similar to what I did with the windows. And then I hooked it up to a alpha node along with just having it be a little bit rough with the texture so it's not reflecting too much light. And from there, you can now see how these flying monkeys sit within this scene where there's about, I think, 5 monkeys per line, and then each section has more monkeys. But the main characters of this scene are, of course, Elphaba and Glinda, and I had created both of them in Toon Boom Harmony to be able to have them animate and exist in this specific scene. Once I put them into this scene, it felt like everything came into place. I started to feel like, okay, so now I see where my vision was, how I can make this story and this photo actually come to full circle here. Like I said, these characters are animated, their hair is moving, their eyes are moving. There's a little bit of people twitching as well, just to give them a little bit more life. That was animated in Toon Boom Harmony, and I've imported them into PNG sequence into this scene. Similar to the monkeys, I have them on an alpha node along with just a little bit of emission as well, because I wanted them to glow within the scene. This is a bit deceiving because the compositor is also on the viewport. So once I turn off the compositor, you'll see what it actually looks like. This is how the scene looks before any effects. So very green, very bright. Even if I put the roof on, for example, that's not changing the lighting here. These characters are overexposed, and I wanted them to be this way. I wanted them to be able to coordinate with the compositor that I have. Jumping actually into that compositor and what it looks like so I can make it look like it did previously to this. I have a lot of things here. It's really nice to be able to have a little bit of expertise in regards to how to make this look. So what we have here is a change in exposure. Like I mentioned, I lowered the exposure. Then I did some curves to give it a little bit of a stronger curve. We changed the hue and saturation just a little bit and color corrected. And then I wanted to give it a little bit of bloom. I feel like within the actual movie, there is a lot of bloom and light and halation a little bit for a lot of these characters. So I wanted to replicate that as much as I could. So we have a glare here with fog glow, soften, so we can soften some of that line work. Some sunbeams, so as we have light reflecting off the windows, it is giving a glare rather than just a blown out light. And then we also have another glare here as well for bloom. So that's going to be a little bit more of that halation effect that I talked about previously. So when I'm in this actual frameage of these characters, you can now see what all those effects do to put it together. The depth of field with the camera in the camera actual functions, as you see over here on the right, really help give that depth that I was looking for in these characters. As I continue creating more of these, I probably will experiment with having the characters extrude in certain points and move back in some of the points just to have the shadows reflect not so flatly or light reflect so flatly on these characters. All these characters in this scene look like they belong here with the compositor and everything else. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and we'll see what the next movie I do is.